I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping on my morning coffee while the early sun spilled through the window, lighting up the room with that warm, golden glow you only get this time of day. Across from me was my wife, Laura, slowly flipping through the local newspaper like she wasn't really reading it, just going through the motions. She stirred her tea without even looking at it. To my right, her daughter Emily was hunched over her phone, scrolling like her life depended on it, that same bored expression glued to her face. The only sounds were the soft clinks of silverware and the occasional whisper of a turned page. After 5 years of marriage, our mornings had fallen into this quiet rhythm, something I used to find peaceful, but lately it felt like it might break at any moment. Laura had been through hell before I ever showed up in her life. Her divorce from Greg had been messy, a real nightmare. He was abusive, the kind of guy who turned mean when he drank, and eventually it caught up with him. He was arrested after one of his drunken rages turned violent. Laura had to fight her way out of that chaos, and even though the bruises healed, the damage went deeper. She doesn't talk about those days much, but the way her voice tightens when his name comes up says more than enough. I met her a few months after she'd closed that chapter. We were both dragged to some dinner party neither of us wanted to attend, and somehow it just clicked. Maybe it was her laugh, the way it softened everything around her. Or maybe it was how she actually listened when I talked, like what I said mattered. 1 year later, we were married. And with Laura came Emily, who was 13 at the time. Now she's 18 and still just as guarded. I knew being a stepdad wouldn't be simple, especially not with a girl like Emily. She was always polite, never disrespectful, but distant. There was a wall between us I never could figure out how to climb. I don't blame her for it. I never tried to replace her father, and I never will. I've done my best to be steady, to earn my place in their world. I love them, and if Emily never calls me anything other than her mom's husband, I can live with that. But lately, Laura doesn't feel like the same person I married. Something's changed. The connection we used to have, that warmth, it's faded. It's been replaced by something colder, something harder to reach. It started small, fewer conversations, less affection. She always claimed she was tired. Then came the phone, always in her hand, her attention buried in it like the rest of the world didn't exist. And every time I walked into the room, she'd snap it shut like I wasn't supposed to see what she was doing. I noticed everything. I'm not an idiot. At first, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was stress. Maybe I was missing something. But week after week, month after month, that voice in the back of my mind wouldn't shut up. So I did the one thing I swore I'd never have to do. I hired a private investigator. $2,000, and 1 week later, I had my answer. A good PI isn't cheap, but he earned every penny. He gave me what I needed to see. Laura had been meeting up with Greg, her ex-husband, the same guy who tore her apart once, the one I thought she'd buried in the past. And now here we were. I knew today was the day she was going to say something. Like clockwork, Laura folded the newspaper and set it gently on the table. Her fingers lingered at the edges like she was trying to find some courage in the creases. Then she looked at me, lips pressed tight, eyes unreadable, and finally spoke. "Nathan, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice soft, almost careful. I set my coffee cup down slowly, keeping my eyes on hers. "Sure, Laura," I said, my voice even. "Go ahead." She hesitated. Her fingers picked at the edge of the tablecloth. She was clearly struggling to find the right words. "I'm going to be gone for 40 days, Laura said, her words dropping into the silence like a heavy stone into still water. I didn't react right away, just leaned in a little, keeping my voice even. "All right," I said simply. Her shoulders tightened. She gave a slight shrug, like she was bracing for what might come next. "I mean it," she continued, her tone growing steadier with each word, like saying it again gave her more confidence. "A full 40 days. I'll be staying with Greg." There it was. "It's his birthday month," she added quickly, like that somehow made it okay. "I want to make it special for him." I leaned back in my chair, let the weight of her words settle over me. My face didn't change, but I felt the heat building behind my ribs. Still, I kept my cool. "So let me get this straight," I said quietly, my voice low and tight. "You're planning to go live with your ex-husband for 40 days, cooking for him, cleaning up after him, and sleeping with him. She blinked, but I kept going. What? He can't hire someone for that. Why does my wife need to be the one playing maid and more? I took a sip of coffee, letting the bitterness settle on my tongue. I wasn't yelling. I didn't need to. The sharpness was in my words. Her eyes widened. What the hell are you even saying, Nathan? I'm not some prostitute, if that's what you're implying. You said it, not me. I placed my mug down with care. But you're going to act like his wife while you're still married to me. She didn't look away. Didn't flinch. It's not cheating, she said flatly. I told you. I'm being honest. So that makes it different. I nodded slowly, her twisted logic hitting me like a slow-moving train. Right? So I'm just supposed to sit here for 40 days while you go play house with Greg? Her expression tightened. Come on, Nathan. I have needs too. There are things I need that only he can give me. You mean those things he does that you once told me you needed? She froze for a moment. I knew I'd hit the mark. I've seen the texts, I said, my tone steady. The pictures. The videos. Don't pretend I don't know what this is about. You made your desires pretty clear, but I kept my voice calm, controlled. No need to shout when you already know the truth. You've got your needs, I said, locking eyes with her. What about mine? She threw her hands up in frustration. Fine, do what you want. But when I come back, I expect you to be the husband you're supposed to be. I leaned forward slightly, letting my words land like cold steel. And what if I don't want to come back? What if I find something better in the next 40 days? Would that sit well with you? She opened her mouth, but before she could say anything, I turned to Emily. She'd been there the whole time, quiet, watching. I looked her in the eye and asked, What about you, Emily? You think your mom should throw her marriage away just so she can chase after her ex? She didn't blink, just smirked like she'd been waiting for her moment. She's not your property, Emily said, voice dripping with attitude. She's free to go wherever she wants. You don't own her. That hit hard, and the way she said it, that wasn't just support. That was personal. She wasn't some bystander watching this unfold. No, she was in it. Every word, every look. It was like she enjoyed throwing in my face. Like she wanted me to know they were united. Laura and Emily weren't just walking this path together. They were walking it against me. And that's when the last piece clicked into place. I knew the full picture now. Emily wasn't just tagging along for moral support. She was going to Greg's place too. That realization twisted something in me. Not anger exactly. More like a cold knot of betrayal tightening in my gut. Still, I kept my expression neutral. I lifted my hands slightly, like I was surrendering to the moment. Well, I said calmly, since both of you are on board with this little arrangement, I won't stand in the way. No use being a roadblock when the train's already off the tracks. Laura smiled, that smug, self-satisfied kind of smile that doesn't even need words to hurt. It didn't just sting, it burned. But I wasn't finished. With a measured voice and a level gaze, I said, that being said, Laura, I want something in writing. A document. We'll be officially separated for the next 40 days. Legally. During that time, I'm not responsible for you or your daughter, financially or otherwise. I'll let the next line hang in the air, and I'll be free to handle my own needs. However I see fit. She narrowed her eyes. Her voice was laced with suspicion. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. Calm, collected. It means I'm calling my lawyer. He'll draft everything we need. We'll swing by the courthouse tomorrow, make it official. Nice and simple. I gave it a beat, then added with a dry smile, I'm just clearing the way for you. Go be with Greg, or whoever else fits your mood. And it won't be cheating, right? Because we'll be legally separated. A smirk tugged at the edge of my mouth. And while you're off exploring your freedom, I'll be doing the same. No strings punto. Laura's eyes narrowed even more, like she was trying to read between lines she hadn't expected. Why are you doing this? She asked. I stood up slowly, looking down at her with complete clarity. Because, Laura, you already made it clear nothing I said would have stopped you. So I'm not going to try. I gave her the kind of smile you give when you finally stop caring. And honestly, I'm not going to waste this opportunity either. That's when Emily chimed in, grinning like she'd just watched me hand her mom a winning lottery ticket. It's a good idea, Mom. I didn't think Nathan would support you like this. I turned to her, cool and casual. Oh, Emily, you have no idea what support looks like. I didn't wait for a reaction. I left the room, already pulling out my phone. I called my lawyer and said 2 words, "Do it." By early afternoon, he was sitting in our living room across from Laura, a stack of papers laid neatly between them. She didn't even skim them, just signed with a flourish, like she was closing a real estate deal. Every movement radiated confidence, like she thought she'd just secured her freedom on her terms. I leaned back and watched it unfold. When she finished signing, I nodded slightly and said, "It's done. Finalized tomorrow." That evening, I told her I was going out for a drink. No explicación, no excuse. I just grabbed my keys and left. I wasn't drunk when I came back, but I made sure it was late enough that we wouldn't have to cross paths. I didn't need words anymore. The silence was doing just fine. The next morning, we were standing in a courthouse side by side like business partners dissolving a contract. Laura stood tall, collected. The judge skimmed the agreement and looked up. "Mrs. Miller," he said, "did you review this document with your attorney? Just to confirm, for the next 40 days, your husband will not provide financial support for you or your daughter, and he's free to act independently. Are you okay with this?" Without blinking, she nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge shrugged and said, "All right then." That evening, Laura was practically bouncing around the bedroom, packing her suitcase like she was getting ready for vacation. The energy, the joy on her face, was almost surreal. For the first time in months, she looked alive. I stood in the doorway with my arms crossed, just watching. She glanced up at me, smiling like this was the best day of her life. "Nathan, thank you. You seriously have no idea how much this means to me. I'll make it up to you when I'm back." Her words were almost funny. I gave her a faint smile. "No need. I'll make sure I'm taken care of." Then I turned and walked away, each step slow, steady, but inside I was spinning. Everything was in place. Every move calculated. And now it was time to see it through. I've always been the rational one. The guy who thinks things through, keeps emotions in check, follows logic. But standing there that night, alone in the hallway while my wife packed for 40 days with her abusive ex, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not rage, not even betrayal. It was grief, a quiet kind of loss I couldn't quite name. Like something inside me had finally died, and I wasn't sure what it was. But truth be told, she'd already destroyed our marriage long before any of this came to a head. All the time I invested trying to help Emily, every bit of money I spent, all the overtime hours just to make their lives easier. Turns out it was all for nothing. The brand new car I bought for Emily, that hefty college fund I'd been building up since before we even got married, all of it down the drain. And for what? So her daughter could smugly remind me I don't own her mother? Yeah, that stung. But hey, life's never been in the business of handing out fairness. Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I'd spent years acting with patience, kindness, and love. Now it was time for the reaction. That evening, Laura and Emily left to move in with Greg, to start their little pretend family. I made sure to stand in the doorway and give them a little wave. One last goodbye. They'd earned it. As soon as their car turned the corner, I headed for the kitchen and grabbed the bottle of Jack Daniels. I poured a solid glass over some ice and took a slow sip, feeling that familiar burn travel down my throat. At least it still felt real. Then I picked up my phone. "It's done," I said. "Let's go ahead and start." The next morning, I got to work. First on the chopping block was Emily's car, the Honda she'd begged for, even though she complained about the color. Well, tough luck. Now she could pick out any color she wanted, if her dad was willing to foot the bill. Then I turned my attention to Laura's pride and joy, her car. She used to show it off like it was proof of how much I loved her. Too bad she never appreciated the man who made it possible. Let Greg take care of her transportation now. That's his job for the next 40 days. As for the house, the big one they never stopped complaining about, too much space, too cold, not homey enough. Well, they're living in Greg's cozy little place now. Maybe that's where they belong. By the end of the day, everything was in motion. My accounts were cleared, and over $2 million had quietly found a home offshore. Safe, secure, untouchable. No more sacrifices. I was done being the giver. For the first time in years, I was free to do exactly what I wanted. 3 days passed, and for the first time in a long time, the silence felt good, peaceful even. Then the phone rang. It was Laura. Her voice trembled, like she was trying to sound composed, but panic was leaking through every word. I called the house, no one answered. Where are you? I couldn't help but smile a little. The irony was perfect. I took a sip of my drink and answered calmly, taking care of my desires. Then I ended the call before she could say another word. That night, the calls came fast and relentless. First Laura, then Emily, over and over. I didn't pick up. I already knew why they were calling. They'd checked the accounts. The joint one, empty. The college fund, gone. The safety net they assumed would always be there, cut. I could practically hear the shock in their silence. But honestly, how else was I supposed to take care of my desires when all my money was wrapped up in making their lives easier? The phone kept buzzing. I let them sit in it for a while. Let it sink in. 3 more days passed. Same routine. Non-stop ringing. Then, finally, I picked up. Hey, Laura. How are you? I said casually, like we were old friends. Sorry I missed your calls. I was busy getting my needs met. She exploded. The words flew at me like darts. Blame, anger, guilt trips, half-truths, outright lies. Some of the things she said didn't even make sense. It was like she just needed to fill the air with noise. And sure, part of me understood. She had every reason to be furious. But I didn't interrupt. I just listened, sipping my drink, waiting her out. When she finally ran out of steam, I exhaled. Guess now's not the best time to talk. Bye. Click. And so began 5 straight days of calls. Her screaming, me hanging up. Rinse and repeat. By day 6, when I answered, something had changed. There was a shift in her tone, something raw and cracked beneath the surface. This time, I didn't hang up. I didn't dodge the call or silence the noise. I sat with it. Let it come. Let her speak. And when there was a break in her rant, I calmly asked, Did you open the envelope? A pause. Then the faint sound of papers being rustled. Inside that manila envelope were photographs, high definition, time-stamped, and location tagged. Laura and Greg. In hotels. In his house. In my house. On beds, on couches. Some pictures showed things I'll never be able to unsee. One image showed exactly how far things had gone, though by then I'd already seen the full show on video. You knew. Her voice cracked, the first real crack in her armor. All this time, oh yes, I replied quietly. I've known for a while. Silence followed. Not denial. Not more yelling. Just silence. Like she was finally realizing the depth of what she'd done. Or more importantly, what I'd known. Since you made your bed, I continued, I figured I'd make sure you laid in it. You didn't try to stop me. Oh no, I said calmly. Why would I? The moment you chose to go back to your ex, our marriage was over. And when given the choice between staying in that betrayal or enjoying the beaches of Jamaica, I picked peace. The rest was easy. The divorce papers are filed. Adultery-based. Clean and simple. I even left you a little something in the joint account. Should be enough for gas money to get to Greg's place. I could practically hear her shaking on the other end. She didn't scream at first. Just that heavy, hot silence. The kind that feels like a storm waiting to break. Then it hit. You didn't leave any money for Emily, she shrieked. How is she supposed to go to college now? I didn't flinch. She's not. What? Not on my dime, I said flatly. She's not my daughter, Laura. And she showed me exactly where her loyalty lies. Let Greg figure out tuition. A beat of silence. Then the phone changed hands. Unbelievable, came Emily's voice, sharp and shaking. You just going to abandon me? More screaming. More accusations. I let her go on. Let her vent. Because I knew this was the last time I'd ever hear her voice. Then came the one line that almost made me laugh. You sold my car. No, I replied, cool as ever. I sold my car. You just had to drive it for a while. You took my college fund, she cried. I thought you were helping me. I let the bitterness rise to the surface. I used the money to fund my desires. Remember that line you liked to repeat? That your mom could drink from any watering hole she wanted. I paused, then added, so can I. She screamed again, the edge in her voice breaking into desperation. What am I supposed to tell my friends? That my car's gone. I didn't even blink. Tell them your stepdad sold it to pay for rum and sunshine. Or better yet, that you're moving in with your real dad. You seem to like that plan anyway." I heard her gasp, like the wind had been knocked out of her. Then Laura was back on the line, furious, breathless. "You stole our money," she hissed. "You can't do this. I'll call the police." "Please go ahead," I said, my voice as calm as ever. "You signed a legal document waiving any financial responsibility from me." I paused just long enough to let that sink in. I spent my money during the 40-day separation window. And now, well, I'm broke. Laura's response came like a slap, full of disbelief and fury. "You seriously expect me to believe that?" I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "I never asked you to believe me," I said evenly. "But in court, that's where it will matter. And I'll have proof." And then, with a final tone that made it clear I was done, I added, "For anything else, talk to my attorney. His number's in the envelope. Take care, Laura." Click. I knew it wasn't the last I'd hear of her. A few days later, the legal wheels started turning. As expected, Laura tried to challenge the divorce, claimed I'd approved her stay with Greg. That was all mutual. My lawyer, calm as ever, presented the key evidence, time-stamped photos of Laura and Greg together, before the 40-day agreement even started. He stood tall and firm in front of the judge and said, "Your Honor, the photographs clearly show that Mrs. Miller was engaged in a sexual relationship with Mr. Parker before the temporary separation was filed. My client was unaware of this infidelity, and thus, her claim that Mr. Miller approved of her actions is false. She lied. She broke the trust foundational to their marriage." Then came the money. Receipts, bank statements, travel records, hotel invoices from Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, all in my name, all accounted for. My lawyer laid it out clean and precise. "Your Honor," he continued, "my client spent his own funds during the legally separated period. He acted within his rights, and Mrs. Miller acknowledged this by signing the agreement." The judge, sharp, no fool, saw through the drama. He knew manipulation when he saw it. But the law was the law. The paperwork was clean, airtight. His only comment? The remaining assets, if any, will be divided according to standard post-divorce procedures. Then came a Hail Mary. Laura's lawyer suddenly tried to bring up child support for Emily. My lawyer didn't even blink. "Objection, Your Honor," he said firmly. "Emily is not Mr. Miller's biological child, nor has he ever legally adopted her. There is no legal or financial responsibility to be claimed. This is a non-issue." The judge nodded, already aware of that detail. It wasn't just a technicality, it was the end of that argument. But my lawyer wasn't finished. He added, dry as desert air, "Additionally, my client has taken steps toward renouncing all worldly attachments. He's chosen a path aligned with Buddhist monastic life. He has no income, no assets under his control, and no continuing obligations." I didn't even have to fake the peace of mind I felt. It was real. I had shed the weight, and they were left holding the receipts. It was bold, maybe even absurd, but somehow the defense held. The judge, who'd kept a perfectly straight face through most of the hearing, finally cracked. He leaned back in his chair and gave Laura a look that said it all. He smirked, just barely, and said, "Tough luck, ma'am." A wave of low murmurs passed through the courtroom, and with that it was over. The divorce is granted. Whatever's left in the joint account is awarded to Mrs. Miller. Final. Clean. Official. A month later, I found out what had become of Laura and Emily. No surprise, they'd moved in with Greg. I imagine they thought it would be some kind of fresh start, a second chance. The three of them under one roof, playing house. But reality doesn't care about hopeful fantasies. It was nothing but a replay of the same toxic story Laura had once begged to escape. Greg was still the same man, a drunk, a bully, a man who didn't know how to love without hurting. Soon enough, he was back to his old ways. Screaming, shoving, hitting. And Laura? She stayed. Not because she wanted to, but because she had nowhere else to go. No home, no support system, no backup plan. She was stuck, reliving the same nightmare. Only this time, she'd burned every bridge behind her. Emily? She'd gone from leather seats and grocery drop-offs to walking or waiting on the city bus. No more free rides. No more backup plans. Just her and the harsh reality of a life she never expected. As for Greg, my revenge wasn't about fists or threats. That was never the point. It was simple. I gave him what he thought he wanted. I handed Laura and Emily over to him. No conditions, no strings. Now it was his job to feed them, to house them, to deal with their needs, their moods, their expectations. He wanted the crown? Let him wear it. Let him carry the weight. Sometimes, you don't need to destroy someone to break them. You just give them exactly what they ask for, and watch them crumble under the cost.